Welcome everyone to the Kidlit Social. I'm Laura Backus, publisher of Children's Book Insider and co-creator of writingblueprints.com. I almost said .org. And your host for 85 socials. And this is our last regularly scheduled social. And so I appreciate you all watching this one. It's been just a wonderful 2.5 years. We started this right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think I want to say April 3rd was our first one. I might be wrong. And originally we were doing them on a different day of the week too. I don't remember. I think it was Wednesday. But it was a way, we called it the Kidlit Distancing Social, and it was a way to just build community, keep people connected during the pandemic. We had all just gone into lockdown and everybody was a little like stunned. And we did it every week back then. We did it every week for, I would say, probably the first 6 months or so. It was very easy for me to find guests because everybody was home. So it was actually great. And then when things started opening up, we moved to twice a month and we made it the Kidlit Social, and we continued it for 2 more years, and it's been wonderful. I've had a great time. I have not had a bad or boring interview in the entire time. If any of you are watching this, either here or on the replay, and were one of my guests, thank you. I enjoyed meeting everybody. I learned a lot. I made some friends. It was great. It was wonderful. But we have a lot of stuff that we're sort of developing, new stuff for our business, and we need to devote time to that. This takes time, and not necessarily time that I have right now. But we are not saying goodbye forever to the Kidlit Social. I reserve the right, absolutely, to have what we're going to call pop-up socials. When I come across some really interesting topic that I really want to discuss, or I meet somebody who I think would be a really amazing guest, we will have a social and we will send out the info to all of you, and you can show up and we will learn something and see each other again. So stay tuned for that. Okay. I'm going to continue here. Whoop. There we go. Now, for the last time, for those of you who have been on the social a lot, if you're new and watching for the first time and you want to get on our mailing list so that you can hear about everything we do from now on, go to writeforkids.org/ultimate-cheat sheet. You'll get on our list and you will get a free ebook, our gift to you. We've compiled 32 years worth of knowledge on how to get started as a children's writer, beginner tips, kind of laying out the different age groups and glossaries of terms and some suggested reading lists, just things give you a good kind of foundation if you're just getting started writing for kids. So you'll get that and you'll get on our list, and then you will hear about everything we do from now on. And if you do not subscribe to our newsletter, Children's Book Insider, which is in its 32nd year of publication, and you want to, writeforkids.org/CBI is a special $5 a month issue price, and which is less than our regular price, by the way. And we will get you subscribed. Comes out once a month. And what's great is we have a special above the slush pile submission opportunity every month with either an editor or an agent who gives us an interview. We give you a link to a special form where you put your pitch, your manuscript pitch, and a bunch of other information in it. We send those to the editor or agent, and then they will read them and they will contact you if they want to see the full manuscript. Often these are people who are not taking submissions. This month, we have Danielle Collins she's an editorial assistant with both Beach Lane Books and Paula Wiseman Books, 2 imprints with Simon & Schuster. She's acquiring for each of them, and she is our spotlight editor this month. giving you a special Above the Slush Pile submission opportunity. So she's taking picture books and middle grade. If you're interested and you're not a subscriber, that's how you do it right there. Now we celebrate. Okay. Jody Jones writes, I had my first magazine article published. It's in the fall issue of Freelance, the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Quarterly Members Magazine. We have a lot of socialites who are from Saskatchewan. It came out today. Yay! I'm also building my website and will begin querying my first picture book very soon. It's polished and ready to go. Well, go you, Jody. That's awesome. And I expect to hear from you when a report on how those queries are going. Valerie Johnson's debut book, 1, 2, 3, Count With Me on Granddad's Farm, was released on August 30th. Since then, her book is ranked #1 in 2 of Amazon Kindle's children's categories, baby and toddler counting books and children's nonfiction animal books. That's awesome. Additionally, the book won the Literary Titan Gold Book Award. That is great, Valerie. Congratulations on that. And there's her website, westoaklanekids.com. Hope that book does well for you. Ruthie Kirk writes, I entered #PitchMe. It's a Twitter pitch event. After learning about it in the September issue of Children's Book Insider, and my picture book entry was chosen as one of the 7 finalists out of 142 entries. I'm grateful to CBI and to Krista Van Dolzer and Tara Shiroff, who organized this event and are helping finalists polish their work. Ruthie, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. And those of you who have no idea what she's talking about, Pitch Me is a Twitter pitch event that happens, I think, just once a year. Sponsored by Krista Van Dolzer, and during one specific time period on one specific day, which I wrote about in the September issue of the newsletter, you can tweet your pitch for your book. And I think 250 words of your manuscript, I can't remember. And they go through and choose top finalists in each category, and Tara and Krista, who are both well-published authors, then mentor these people, help them polish their manuscript, work on their pitch, get it ready, and then they are posted 4 weeks later on a Twitter feed, and 14 different agents can read them and like the pitches that they want to see more of. So it's a great opportunity. Congrats, Ruthie, and please let us know how that goes for you. Okay, and if you missed any of the 85 Kidlit socials, you can find the replays by going to writeforkids.org and clicking on Kidlit Social at the top of the page. But don't wait too long, because they are not going to be there forever. And, there's probably some topics you may have missed that you really want to catch up on. So this is your opportunity. Make sure you go and watch any replays that you may have missed. And this is something I am celebrating. Celebrate will live on. We are going, starting next month, to create a celebrate section at the end of each issue of Children's Book Insider. So you can send me your celebrates and I will list them in the newsletter. And each listing can include, it's up to you, a description of the celebration. Obviously, we want that no matter what. Hyperlinks to websites, blog posts, Amazon listings, etc. So if you have a book out or a website that you've just finished or a blog you've just created and you want other people to find it, send me the hyperlink. The great thing about this being in the newsletter is those hyperlinks will actually exist in the PDF that all of our subscribers get, so they can click on them too. And the hyperlinks will not count as part of your 125-word description. And you can send me up to 1 image to go with it, a book cover or a magazine cover or a picture of your article or whatever you want. And I'm going to have 2 sections. We'll celebrate publications, and we'll also celebrate other great news, such as I finished my manuscript and I'm ready to submit it, or pitch me picked me as one of the finalists. Those are all great things that we want to celebrate with you as well. So send me everything. Same email as always, mail@writeforkids.org, and put celebrate in the subject line. And I need to receive the information by the 20th of the month for it to get in the next month's issue. So by October 20th to get in the November issue. And I will just print as many as I get because we're all electronic, so I can go as long as I want with the newsletter. I would ask, please, in your description, take advantage of this and give us the title of your book. Give us the age range. I want to, most people are going to want to know if it's a picture book or middle grade novel or YA or nonfiction or whatever. Give us the publisher if it's coming out, soon. Think of this as a way to promote yourself. So what kind of information do you need to get out there? I will not track this down for you. Okay, this is up to you. So I will print what you send me. So take advantage of this and send me the good stuff. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your great celebrations. Okay, links of interest. I do this every month, every week, every social. And today I just decided to, these are the two blogs that I have mentioned the most on the social. And I'm just telling you, you should just follow them. Okay, I'm not creating special links for you. You should just follow these blogs. Nathan Bransford at nathanbransford.com. He writes incredibly useful writing tips, and they are always sort of getting down to the nitty gritty and the finer points of writing. You can see by these 3 recent posts, okay? These are great. He is a writer, he's a former agent, he's a freelance editor, so he gets right to the point and he writes really great advice. Jane Friedman is a tremendous industry professional, expert, been around forever. She has a lot of great guest posts on her blog. And so you will be exposed to all different kinds of writers who maybe have their own blogs that you want to follow that give writing advice. This is how you start building your knowledge base, really. And so just subscribe to her blog, please. These are 3 recent articles that I just noticed that I thought were really interesting. You could see that sometimes they have to do with writing, sometimes they have to do with the business of publishing. You get all sorts of information. So that is my advice to you on my final links of interest. Come on. Okay, and now you get to ask me anything. And I am going to stop my share. I just love this picture. I had to put it up. Okay. I would actually, before I get into your questions, I see you have some, great questions already. But before, oh, Jesus, sorry, I have way too many windows open. Let me see if I can figure out. I have some notes I wanted to pull up here. Okay. Sorry. I'm closing a few things. Oh my goodness. You'd think I would have this down. I've done it so much. Okay. So I had a question come in. I'm really not that distracted. Earlier today. That I want to, and I think Sheila is here, Sheila Lewis. I thought I saw her name. But she said she was dashing off to Yom Kippur service and she had a couple questions. So first of all, to our Jewish friends who are observing Yom Kippur, I know you're not watching right now, but you'll be watching on the video. Thank you for joining us all these socials. And I hope your fast was easy and fulfilling. I can't remember what there's like something that's appropriate to say, not happy Yom Kippur, but I hope you had an easy fast. Okay. And thank you for being part of the socials all this time. Okay, so Sheila had a couple really great questions. She said, first of all, what's coming up next for you? Keep us informed. So, briefly, we have a lot of sort of new stuff that we're going to be doing with our business. We're restructuring some things, we are updating some things, and this is all going to take place over the next year. So, just stay tuned for that. You'll, of course, know as soon as we can tell you. But it's going to be exciting, and it's going to make a lot of stuff easier for all of you who are part of our big CBI and Writing Blueprints family. So I'm excited about that. We're also continuing, obviously, the newsletter, webinars, as close to once a month as we can do it, and other offerings. We do have a webinar October 26th. You'll be hearing about that in the next week or so, but it's going to be awesome. It's Todd Mitchell is our instructor. Some of you took his webinar with us last winter. It was called Breakthrough: Following the Hero's Journey to the Creative Transformation You Deserve. That was a really cool webinar. Now he's doing something very craft oriented, and it's about the power of conflict to transform both your character and your plot. And he is a writing instructor on the college level. That's his day job. So he's really good at this stuff, and this is going to be amazing. So stay tuned for that. We'll give you lots of info as we get closer to that one, October 26th. Sheila's second question really got me thinking. She says, if you could make life easier for authors and illustrators, how would you? So I started thinking about this. That's a really good question. And I thought, well, if I had a magic wand, and then I started coming up with all these things, because I've been in publishing for 36 years, something like that, a long time. And I thought about back when I started, and my very first job was in publicity at Random House, and we used to send authors on book tours, and there was media in all of the cities. There were radio shows and there were TV shows that featured authors. You could get them booked on interviews, and there were book review editors in all the major papers. My father was book review editor of the Denver Post, and before that, the Chicago Tribune. And there was whole pull-out book sections that came out every Sunday, and authors would go get interviewed. And, it was like a different way of promoting. And I was like, wouldn't that be cool if we could bring that back? But if I did that, I would have to undo social media, because that's what took away all these things. And also e-publishing. And those two things have actually made life easier for a lot of authors. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess, and I didn't necessarily want to do that. And then I thought about wanting fewer books to get published every year so that each book gets a little more attention and spotlight and space. And I think we may eventually go that way with publishing, because there's just so many books right now that get published. But that would also mean that each book would have to take longer to come out than it does now, because there'd be fewer slots. So again, good, bad, you weigh them, pros and cons. So I don't have a magic wand, and I can't turn back time, and I don't have the power to make things easier for you, but you have the power to make things easier for you. So here is what I wish for you. Two things. First of all, I would like you to stop comparing yourself to other writers. We all do this, and it's so easy to fall into this trap. So-and-so is farther along in her career than I am. What's wrong with me? We started writing at the same time. We're in the same critique group. She's had 3 books published. I haven't had a single book published yet. What's wrong with me? Or so-and-so got published, and my writing is so much better than hers, or my story is so much better than his. And it might be someone you know, or it might be someone you don't know. You just see a book on your shelf and you go, how come this got published and mine didn't? And that is really hard. And sometimes I don't have a good answer for you. There are some books out there that I can't tell you why they got published. I don't have an answer. But in the vast majority of the cases, I want to tell you this. You are on your own journey. It doesn't matter what other authors do. You are not competing with them. Every great book that gets published creates readers for someone else's book. So Harry Potter basically single-handedly paid the bills for Scholastic for 10 years. And you may resent the money that J.K. Rowling made, or think that she didn't deserve it, or think that Harry Potter wasn't as good as some other books. But that series allowed Scholastic to publish a lot of first-time authors who they were taking a gamble on because they didn't know if they would make their money back. And that series also created an enormous generation of readers. And once that series was over, all those readers needed more books. So every time someone is successful, it just opens up the door for readers to find you. So remember that. But more importantly, you don't know those other authors' journeys. You don't know how many years they got up at 4 a.m. to write for an hour or two before getting their kids ready for school and going to their day job. And you don't know how many writing workshops they attended or how many family vacations doubled as research trips for their idea. You don't know how many rejections they got. So very often we're comparing ourselves to someone who is way farther along in their journey than we are. And we're thinking we're supposed to be equal with them right now. What you can do if you're going to play that game is to actually research the people you're comparing yourself to. Read in their interviews that they've done, read their blogs, read their bios. They will talk about how hard they work to get where they are. And then you can go, okay, she did this and this and this, and it helped. I'm going to try doing that too. So you can model your next step after what they did, but don't use their journey as a reason to cut yourself down. The only person that you should compare yourself to is you. If you compare yourself today as a writer with the writer you were 6 months ago, and you're moving in the direction you want to go, then you're good. That is success. And if you use other people's successes as guideposts for pointing you in the direction you want to go, that's great. But that's all their successes are guideposts. They are not a measurement of your own success or your own worth, because your path will ultimately diverge from theirs and become all your own. So number one, stop comparing yourself to other writers. Number two, the second wish I have for you to make your lives easier is to accept that this is supposed to be hard, which probably is not what you wanted to hear. Now, as someone who has made her living teaching people how to write and publish children's books, you might think I am crazy for telling you that this is supposed to be hard. But hear me out. You're creating books for children and teens. These are human beings at the most vulnerable, impressionable, and often emotional phases of their lives. They're like sponges, soaking up everything around them. And it's also the time when they are forming their identities and when they are discovering the world and when they're growing all these connections in their brains that will lay the foundation for everything they do and become for the rest of their lives. And sometimes a book can be the only friend a child has, or it can save a teenager's life. Books can have a huge impact. And just because someone has an idea for a book doesn't mean that book is worthy of being published. So as the grown-ups, it's our duty to make sure the books placed in a child's hands go beyond the lowest common denominator. Kids deserve to have books that the authors and illustrators have poured their time and passion and skill and sweat into creating. That makes all of us the gatekeepers to quality in children's literature, not just the editors, not just the agents, but all of us. And the creators of books for children and teens have a very sacred duty to work hard and craft the best books possible, because those books have such an impact on young lives. So if writing a book was as easy as making a grocery list or telling a dumb joke, no one would take it seriously. No one would understand how important the job is. But it is important. And if you are one of those who step up and answer this call, I say bravo, but accept that it's supposed to be hard. Now, hard is not impossible. Hard is challenging. Hard means it might take longer than you expect, and you might have to be willing to acknowledge all that you don't know. Hard can also be fun. If you love the process of writing and learning, and then the challenge will be a joy to you. It will get you out of bed in the morning. But hard also makes the journey worthwhile. Earn the right to have young readers open up their imaginations to your ideas and words and illustrations. And I know a lot of you are doing that. And that's one of the reasons you've come here, to listen to the socials, and you have come to our webinars and you read our newsletter, because you are earning that right. And so I am very proud of you for that. So if you accept the challenging nature of writing and illustrating from the very beginning of the process, you won't be tempted to give up the first time you have a setback. You'll roll with it because you'll think, yep, I've been expecting something like this to happen. Now I can move on. Now that one's over and I can move on. It doesn't mean you're a bad writer or stupid or undeserving of success. It's just the process that every writer goes through in order to create something great. So don't compare yourself to others, and accept that this whole writing thing doesn't come easily to anyone, despite what it might look like on the outside. And the nature of what you're creating is complex and mysterious and magical, all at the same time. It's not for the lazy or the impatient. If you commit to this journey, you will separate yourself from the lazy and the impatient and those who don't think it's important or difficult to write. And if you accept that, I have great respect for you. And I fully expect to see your work in print one day and to be celebrating you on a Celebrate. So that is my soapbox for today. And then I will get on to your questions. So thank you, Sheila, for that. It made me think a little bit. Okay. Kendra says, I love your blueprints. Thank you, Kendra. I've done 3. Well, thank you for that. I'm wondering what was your favorite learning resources are for children's poetry or any other genre? Well, poetry, funny you should mention that. So Renee Latulippe, and I have to look up exactly how to spell her name, or if someone wants to Google that while I'm talking, some of you probably know who she is. Thank you, Beth. I knew you'd be the first one to answer that in the chat box. Renee, and her last name, for those of you watching this on replay, is L-A and then capital Tulippe. She is a master poetry teacher. I would check her out. I know she has videos and courses and all sorts of great stuff. But we are also having a webinar in January on writing in rhyme. And I have 3 instructors who are well-published rhyming authors who are going to be teaching it. They're co-teaching it, and they're going to cover informational books in rhyme. They're going to cover fiction in rhyme, and they're going to cover writing for magazines. So writing individual poems and anthologies. So the poems that might go either into a magazine or be collected into an anthology. So that is going to be amazing. And I've seen their outline already, and it's going to be, oh my God, so good. So stay tuned for that. If you're on our list, you'll get notice of that. That's going to be in January. In the meantime, please check out Renee. She's great. Okay. Will the replay still be available? Yes, Sue, they are on our website for writeforkids.org. They will be there for the near future. At some point, they will go away, but they will be here for at least the next few weeks. So please check out any you may have missed. Please talk about the difference between a picture book biography and a middle grade biography. Which one are editors more interested in acquiring? How has the format changed? My goodness, Susan, that is a big question. Okay, so the middle grade biographies can look like picture books sometimes. That's the thing about middle grade nonfiction. There is an illustrated middle grade nonfiction format that looks like a picture book. They're usually a little bit longer. They're usually more like 48 pages, sometimes even a little longer than that. They have a lot more text than the standard picture book. They might even have chapters, but they're the large format like a picture book, and they're illustrated on every page with either photos or illustrations or a combination of the two. If you go to any nonfiction section of like a library or a bookstore, you'll see that. And yet they're really written more for kids ages 8 to 12. So the language and the approach is a little more complex than you'd see in a traditional picture book biography. And then we also have middle grade biographies that look more like middle grade nonfiction. They're smaller trim size, heavier text, just a few pictures sprinkled throughout, chapters. They look like a middle grade nonfiction book. But I guess what you're talking about is more the illustrated versions. The biggest difference between those two is the length of the text. When you're doing a middle grade biography, you might have 2,500 words that you can use. And so you can really get more in depth into the topic. With a picture book biography, you're going to have maybe 800 words. And so obviously not as in depth. And also in a picture book biography, you're going to be much more focused on a small section of that subject's life. So either you're following an accomplishment that they had, maybe from the first idea in their childhood when they started getting interested in this thing, and then you follow it until they make the discovery, that made them famous, or they solve the problem in some way. So it's an arc, like a story. You're not going to talk about every detail of their life, and you're usually not going to start at the beginning of their life and go all the way to the end of their life, though you have back matter in both picture book and middle grade biographies where you can add some of that information. So it's more the scope of information that makes the biggest difference. And like everything else, reading examples of each is really the best way to kind of get your mind around it. Has the format changed in 5 years? Yeah, we've gotten a lot more illustrated middle grade books, that have that look like picture books, and they're being used in the classrooms, and they're being used right alongside the textbooks and the traditional looking middle grade books as part of the curriculum, which is awesome. What are editors more interested in acquiring? I think both. I think with any kind of biography these days, especially picture book biography, you want to not go with the obvious. We have lots of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and, all of that. If you're going to write about George Washington, what was it? Someone I saw, they sold a book recently. Oh gosh, it's just gone out of my head. It was about George Washington, I believe. And it was a specific thing that he had that made an impact on how he led the troops. I want to say his glasses. I don't want to go into any more detail because I can't remember. It was something I read in Publishers Weekly, and I thought that's a great idea. But you have to come up with, uncover some really little known fact about that person and delve into it in the picture book biography if you're going to write about someone who's already been written about so much. What editors really are loving these days are people, lesser known people, who maybe people who are otherwise fairly ordinary in their lives and unknown, but they did one extraordinary thing that impacted history in some way. And I'm seeing a lot more of those kind of biographies come out in the picture book area. So that's something to think about. Okay. Let's see. I think I just deleted someone's question. Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh, Patricia says, I've always wondered who's that man in the photo over your right shoulder. That's my dad. That's my father when he was in college, and he was trying to be basically Jack Kerouac. He moved to San Francisco, North Beach, where all the beats were hanging out, and he was writing. That's when that was going on. This is my dad many years later when he was book editor of the Chicago Tribune. And then that's my mother when she was in her 20s, when they got engaged. And there's glare now. There's a picture right there of me when I was 2 playing in a sandbox. My mom and dad are sitting behind me. My mom is pregnant with my brother. And then that's a picture of me and my bridesmaids at my wedding, but you can't see either of those because there's glare on them. Anyway, yes, very writerly, very writerly. That's his writerly pose. Okay, thank you for asking. Let's see. Oh, who will win the World Series? I know it's not the Rockies. That's all I know. Sorry, Stephen. I would like to hear your prediction. Put it in the chat box. I will oh yes, Washington's glasses. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. I knew I had seen that. Great question. I don't know. If I did, I'd go to Vegas. Can we expect our purchased writing blueprints to be available like forever? Yes. Forever and ever and ever. At least as long as the internet is a thing. You have lifetime access. They're not going anywhere. Okay. Patricia says, I've got a query question. I'm gathering agent contacts for a new picture book manuscript. Would you email 10 at a time and then wait for a response and submit to another 10 agents? I would say 10 is a good number. I wouldn't go more than that. You want to sort of keep track, and I would create a spreadsheet or something so you could keep track. The thing is, I would even start with 5 because you don't know. You might start getting close. You might get some personal rejections, which is why publishing is hard, because we love personal rejections. You might get some rejections where agents put a line or 2 of information about why they're rejecting the manuscript. And if you get 3 or 4 of those and they all say the same thing, you're going to want to revise that work before you send it out again. And if you've got 10 out there already and they're your top 10, then you've already used up that chance with that manuscript. So I would keep it to 5 to start with, and just to kind of see what kind of response you start getting, and go from there. So good luck. Generally, agents get back to you faster than editors, especially if you're just querying like on a submission form, like a submittable form, or just sending a query letter. They usually get through those a little faster. Now, some agents have that, if you don't hear back from me in 6 weeks, it's a no. I don't like that, but that's just the way more and more editors and agents are operating. So you have to kind of figure out what to do with those. I don't know. Good luck with that. Okay. How long from the time a publisher says they're interested in your story until you actually sign a contract with them? Is 3 or 4 months unusual? No, 3 or 4 months would be very usual. I have known people to have to wait longer than that, depending on how the publisher, depending on how busy the editor is, how big the publisher is. The pandemic made everything slow down, but let's pretend that never happened and it's just normal time. Um, if if an editor is interested in your story, they might say to you or to your agent, I want to, I'm going to be taking this to my editorial meeting. I'll get back to you. In that case, they have a lot of hoops to jump through. A lot of people sort of look at the manuscript, sign off on it, discuss it. They do a profit and loss statement. They decide how much it's going to cost to publish. They throw out some ideas for illustrators if it's a picture book and say, can we get this person? How much would that person cost? What's that person's timeline? They've got 3 other projects to do. Well, maybe we don't want to wait that long. What if we tried this person? The sales department weighs in and says, okay, yes, we can sell this. Or, you know what? I've had book buyers tell us, if we see another book on pigs, we're just going to throw you out. We don't want any more books on pigs. And this is a pig book. So I don't know. There's a lot of factors. So that can take a while. So 3 or 4 months is not unusual. I assume, Deanne, that you do not have an agent. If you have an agent, the agent could sort of gently nudge the editor and just say, can you give me an idea of what's happening? If you don't have an agent and you're doing that, I think it is reasonable after 5 months to, well, no, if they have actually contacted you and said they're interested, but you haven't heard anything, I think it's reasonable to drop them an email and just very politely say, I'm thrilled for you to keep my manuscript. I just want to make sure that it's still under consideration because I don't want to submit it anywhere else if it is. And so just very politely, gently ask that, and they should hopefully get back to you and give you an update. So good luck and keep us posted. What is the up and coming in Kidlit? Now are graphic novels, but I'm not an artist. What's coming next? Ooh, wouldn't that be great to know? Graphic novels are very, very, very big right now. And the thing is, you don't have to be an artist. A lot of publishers are taking just texts from graphic novels. So don't let that stop you if you really want to write a graphic novel. But you're not an illustrator, that's okay. So just remember that. I think, well, I am seeing an awful lot of kind of, especially in middle grade and YA, genre blending, which we've always had a little bit, but excuse me, way more now. So we've got magical realism blended with contemporary, blended with romance, or, just mixing it up because they, like everything else, everybody wants the next big new thing. No one knows what it is until it hits. But by the time the new thing hits, you can't write something to get on that trend because your book won't come out in time. So you don't even want to worry about that. Definitely in nonfiction is really, really booming and it's growing like crazy. And I'm really happy to see that because I think nonfiction writers have not had the market that they deserved for a very long time. And more kids are reading nonfiction mainly because the nonfiction's gotten so great and interesting. We've definitely moved away from sort of the dry textbook and we're getting very creative with the nonfiction, and I love that. I'm also seeing more blend of fiction and nonfiction. So it will be a chapter book story that incorporates math concepts. If there's a mystery that the kids are solving and they have to use math to solve the mystery. So anything that incorporates some of those STEM concepts, science, technology, engineering, math, Sometimes people add art to that, make it STEAM, into whatever else you're doing. It's going to find a place in schools, which is great. So basically, anything that a publisher can see that there's a market for, they're going to want. That is not a very easy answer for me to give you because that doesn't give you any direction. It would be easier for me to answer what's not the next big thing. What's not the next big thing is a rehash of an idea we've already got. What's not the next big thing is another alphabet book or another story about you are special or another book about moving to a new neighborhood, unless those are timeless ideas, but it's got to have a new twist or hook to it. It's got to be able to be summed up in one or two sentences in a way that an editor, an agent, a book buyer can go, I've never seen that before. Okay, so what I always say to people is your first idea is probably not the best idea. Your first idea is probably piggybacking on something you read as a kid or some just very universal idea, which are great bases for stories, but they are not the idea you should run with. And you want to sit with it and work with it and pull other threads into it for a long time until it becomes completely unique. And that's what editors and agents are always looking for. So it doesn't really matter what's coming. What matters is that you create something that we don't already have in some way. And then it'll be great. Okay. Don't you love it when people give those really open-ended answers? Are things back to normal in the publishing industry? Well, in some ways, yes. I think publishing schedules are back on track, and most people are going back into the office, at least part-time. I think a lot of people are doing hybrid, and that's not just in publishing, that's everywhere. People are like, oh, I kind of liked working from home. So they're doing part in the office, part at home. I do know that the supply chain is still an issue. Paper is still really expensive. It still takes a lot, gas is expensive. Getting books are still being printed in China because that is, believe it or not, even with the shipping and everything else, cheaper than getting them printed in the United States. So to me, this is just my opinion, publishing needs to create a new normal. They need to create ways to print books in the United States that are cost effective. There are very skilled printers in this country who don't have work because everything's getting shipped overseas. And I know that publishers need to keep the costs down, but then I think the business model needs to be looked at and adjusted. Why are the profit margins so small to start with? And that takes an overhaul. So they are back to close to the old normal, except I do believe there has been a little bit of scaling back on the rush to publish as many books as possible, which is ultimately a good thing. I think quality will then become paramount, more so than quantity, which is great. And, the effects of the pandemic and lots of other, just the economy ripple through things like schools. I know budgets were cut for school visits and even for classroom libraries. And we did a social a few months ago with a woman who is really working to bring awareness to the fact that a lot of public schools don't have librarians anymore on staff. They just don't, because the budgets have been cut. And as a parent, you might walk through and think, oh, there's someone checking out books for my kid. That's got to be a librarian. It's not. It's one of the teachers on her lunch hour checking out books, or it's a parent volunteer. And so those things are going to affect the industry for a long time, and we have to adjust to that. I'm sorry, I'm sort of rambling here, but so I think it's back to as normal as it's going to be for now. Editors and agents are acquiring, they're taking on new books, they're taking on new clients, as much as I've ever seen. It's just the time frame of when your book comes out might be a little longer. But yes, that part I think is normal, and they're very excited to be doing this. So we'll end on that good note. How does a new author sell oneself in a query letter, especially when there is so much competition? Well, again, it doesn't matter that you're new. And that's what's really important to remember here. The thing that hasn't changed in publishing, which I love, is that ultimately the editor, the agent, they are concerned with you, the quality of your writing and the quality of your idea. If this is the first book you've ever written, it doesn't matter, okay? And I see often actually, we have an article in this month's Children's Book Insider from Book Expo, which is a big convention put on by Publishers Weekly over the summer. One of our writers attended and wrote about the panel talking about the state of children's books. And the books that each editor pulled out as examples, almost all of them were from debut authors, which was great to see. So new talent is always in demand, and that's awesome. So don't feel bad if you are new. What you want to sell is your writing and your idea, and that's what the query letter focuses on. So you've got that hook, you've got that statement at the beginning, summing up your idea in 1 or 2 sentences that immediately the editor can go, okay, I get what this book's about. I get that this is an interesting idea. And then after that, you might write a paragraph synopsis. We have articles on our writeforkids.org about writing query letters. And I think we've talked about that in some socials as well. So that's important. Only after that do you write about yourself. Okay, so if you're a member of SCBWI or you've taken a lot of writing classes or whatever, you can put that in there to show that you're serious about learning how to write. That's great. If not, I would just even skip that bio paragraph and just say, I look forward to hearing from you, because it doesn't matter. Everybody starts somewhere. So good luck. Once you're published, are you expected to publish so many books in a year? No, you're not expected to. Agents in particular really like to know, if they're taking on a client, that you got more than one book in you, because they are really interested in helping you build a career as a writer. They want to be with you over your career. That's how agents make money. Agents only work on commission of anything they sell for you. If they can't sell your book, they don't get paid. So they're hoping you have lots of books in you. And but they don't expect you to crank them out on a certain timeline, okay? And the only time that is an issue is if you sign a multi-book contract with a publisher. This happens most often with a series. So you might have the first book in the series, publisher loves it. They say, we want to sign a 3-book deal, meaning we expect you to do at least 2 more books in this series. And then there's probably going to be a timeline in that contract. So if you are writing a series, you should at least have an idea of 2 or 3 more books and an idea of what those plots could be when you are submitting the first book, because this could happen. But other than that, no, you are going to write on your schedule as your books come out. If you are writing work for hire for an educational publisher, that's also a different story. They're going to have timelines and they're going to expect turnaround in a certain time, but that's a completely different kind of writing, and you know that going in. So you're going to be working at your own pace for the most part. Kendra says, I'm not a Twitter girl. Do I need to be? I'm not a Twitter girl either. I don't get it. It scares me. It's too much. I don't go on there. John will post on our business Twitter feed, but I don't do it. You do the social media that you are comfortable with, that you will actually use. And the most important thing with social media, and I've said this in other contexts, some of you might have heard this already, is you're not going out there to say, hey, come buy my book. Your job on social media is to develop relationships with your readers, and they could be your future readers. You are just making connections. You're making friends. So the stuff that you are posting is not going to be, I have a book, here's where it's for sale, come buy it. It's going to be, you know, don't you love walking into a bookstore and that smell of the new books, and it's the fall and it's getting chilly out and you're just looking for the perfect novel to read because it's supposed to snow this weekend, and isn't that the best feeling in the world? And you're connecting with people about what you love and what they love, and you'll start to build followers. People will start commenting on your posts, and then you will, once they know you and like you, then you can say, hey, here's the cover of my new book. It's coming out next month. I'm so excited. You don't even tell them to go buy it, and they'll, you start building the excitement. So if you do that most easily on Facebook, use Facebook. If you do it most easily through blog, use a blog. If you like Instagram, that's what you do. Pick one or two you love, do those, forget the rest, because there's nothing worse than torturing yourself with social media that you hate. What is the best way to talk a friend out of self-publishing when the manuscript is not polished? That's a tough one, because that's kind of why I went on my rant earlier about accept that this is hard. People who don't accept that it's hard, who don't believe it should be hard, sometimes turn to self-publishing. I'm not saying that all self-published books are bad. There are some amazing self-published books out there. And some books should be self-published because that's where they'll do the best. But we have this problem of people not putting in the time to really be able to judge whether it's good. They're going to self-publish it. They're going to spend a lot of money, and it's not going to sell. And they're going to lose a lot of money. That's just the reality. And the thing is, if you have said that to your friend in the nicest way possible, and they still want to self-publish, there's not much you can do about it. But I think talking your friend into getting a professional edit would be very good. Having someone who is experienced in the industry, who has coached a lot of authors, who can look at the book and say, this is not going to sell because there's these problems with it. Now, here's how you could fix this, would probably be the best thing you can get your friend to do. And telling your friend that this will be an investment that they have to make, but it's worth it. They've got to invest. They're creating a business. If you're self-publishing, got to invest in your business. A good editor, depending on what kind of book it is, if it's a picture book, a really good edit might cost them several $100s. A novel could be in the thousands, if they really want an editor to spend a lot of time and really get into this, but it will be worth it. So I would say that would be my suggestion, saying no writer can judge their own work properly. You need to invest in a good critique, not one of those $20 critiques that you see advertised. I think they basically run it through a spell check and that's it. But a really good human being who will give you feedback and guidance, and then go from there. I think that's what you should do, and that's all you can do. But sometimes these lessons need to be learned the hard way. Okay. I know there's some questions in the chat box, but again, I lose them if they are in there. So please put them in the Q&A. And anybody but the Yankees. Yeah, I am this Saturday going to my husband's, John's family in New York. We're going to go visit. Huge Yankee fans. In fact, my son-in-law works for the Yankee franchise. So there you go. It's going to be an interesting visit. But I'm a Cardinals. If I had to choose, I'd go with the Cardinals too. So, but I can't say that. None of you can tell them. Okay, so any more questions that I have not answered? Wow, we're after 7 already. Again, please put them in the chat, in the Q&A, so I don't lose that. And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Writingblueprints.com. Yes, I'm going to put that in the chat. That's our other website. And it has our webinars and our Writing Blueprints courses. They're full courses, all online. So I just put the URL there, writingblueprints.com. So go check that out. We got lots of good stuff on that. What do you consider a good average cost for a professional edit? Yeah, again, it depends on what kind you want. And I have on our Children's Book Insider site, if you're a CBI subscriber, if you look across the top of the CBI Clubhouse, which is the membership site that goes with your newsletter, you can log in with the same password and email that you get your newsletter with. Across the top, there's a tab that said grab your membership perks. And under that, I have a list of some recommended critique services. So there are developmental critiques that are just sort of big overview, like they'll read it and they'll say, they'll look at the arc of the plot, the arc of the character, the general marketability of the book, and they'll say, here's where these things maybe fall short. That's a great place to start because those are less expensive and they will give you big picture. You got to fix the big picture before you can get into the nitty gritty. So a picture book, there are services on there that'll give you that big picture critique for like $125, even less, which is a steal. If you hire someone like, say, Emma Dryden, who's on my list, who's a very, very experienced editor, she's probably more, but not a ton for a big picture book critique. Novels are going to be more because, you know, it takes longer to read and to go through them. So I would expect to pay for that big picture critique of a YA novel, at least $300 to $500, maybe more. I'm just guessing. Could be a lot more. Then if you want more, really get into the line editing and you know, really working with you on honing your voice and this scene isn't doing what it's supposed to. This dialogue goes on too long and I don't feel it serves the purpose it's supposed to in the scene. Here are some suggestions for fixing it. Those sorts of things. That's going to be more because that takes a lot longer. So just remember, those are different kinds of critiques. And then if you're self-publishing, after you do all that editing, you definitely want to hire a copy editor to go through. Copy editors really get down to the grammar and the spelling and make sure that the details remain consistent from page 3 to page 4 and those sorts of things. And then finally, after you have your book laid out, you want to send it to a proofreader and they're going to go through it one more time and look at the grammar and spelling and catch any of those errors. So there's several types of editing. If you are published by a publisher, you don't have to worry about copy editing and all that. They do that. And their editor will go through and edit it for you as well. So you might want to just invest in that big picture edit and get all those things in really good shape. And then have a critique group kind of look through the rest with you before you send it into an editor or an agent if you're going to be submitting that way. Oh, now you've come up with more questions. Not Counting Your Wonderful magazine. Is there an overall best resource anthology suggest for a beginning author? Children's Writers and Illustrators Market, Writers Digest. Children's Writers and Illustrators Market is great if you are submitting, and they actually have some really great articles in there too. So I would definitely get that. Writers Digest is a great magazine. They don't specialize in children's though, they do both. But they have a lot of books out, the Writers Digest. That company is sort of morphing into different things. So I don't know how long the magazine is going to be there, but they have a lot of great books that they have published on the craft of writing. So check out Writers Digest books. And then just these blogs that I follow, there's just some really, really great writing blogs that I love that give you just great writing advice. And you can scroll through past posts and pick the topic you want. Mary Cole, Kole, she's one of the instructors for our one of our blueprints on manuscript submission blueprint, which is amazing. Talk about good tips for writing a query letter. She goes into all that. She has a blog, which is great. DearEditor.com is another great blog by Deborah Halverson. She's a longtime editor. She's on my critique list. So I would just, look at those because they tend to really sort of keep you current on how books are being written now. And that's really a great thing. And also blog posts, you can subscribe to the blogs like once a week, get the feed in, and just, if you want to take a little break from your writing or you've got a spare 20 minutes, just go read a couple blog posts. It's less daunting than trying to read through a whole book. Okay. Kidlit.com is Mary Cole, yeah. What are 2 to 3 recent children's books you think have been the most innovative or important? I knew someone was going to ask me this, and I appreciate the question, but every editor I know hates this question too, because it's like, oh, every book I ever read just went out of my head. So what I would like to ask you all, because you all read a lot of books, I want you to put in the chat box the single children's book you've read recently that just blew your mind in some way, and we will talk about that. And tell us if it's a picture book, middle grade, whatever. And it doesn't have to be recent. It could be, from 10 years ago or whatever. I think I can tell you the single most innovative books from way back that I believe. Number one is Where the Wild Things Are. That was the ground zero for the modern picture book. As far as the writing style, the respect Maurice Sendak has for his audience, that they could handle, they knew what the story was about. He didn't have to explain everything to them. The lyricism, the layout, everything was groundbreaking. There's a monster at the end of this book, starring Grover. Johnstone, I believe, was the writer of that one. It was a Sesame Street book, and that was published like back in the early 60s. That was one of the first books where they broke the fourth wall and the character talked to the reader and the reader became involved. And if we hadn't had that book, we wouldn't have had Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. So all of those books, built, all of that type of book built off of that. That was very innovative. And oh my God, there's so many good books here. I'll just putting through here. Charlotte's Web, my all-time favorite book ever. And that writing style, if you look at it, what's interesting when you study classic books is very often the writing style is dated. If the book was written exactly like that, it wouldn't get published in that form today. Books are much more to the point. There's more action. There's less description and just expository narrative and stuff than there was then. But the story and the characters and the sophistication was amazing. So I can go on and on, but let's see what you guys said. And so that's what, getting back to my half thought there, if you're studying classic books, that's what you study them for. Why are they still around? What element of this book just made such an impact and changed the way writing was done in such a way that it's still in print? So you're not mimicking the style, but you're mimicking or you're incorporating the substance of those classic books into your books. And so that's a really good reason. A lot of people will say, don't read anything that's more than 10 years old. I don't believe that. But you have to know why you're reading the older books and read them a certain way. So you're looking for the substance and what they did that was so groundbreaking. Oh, goodness, here. So Click Clack Moo, that's great. They All Saw a Cat. They All Saw a Cat is amazing. So They All Saw a Cat is a great picture book. What picture books are doing lately, and a lot of these books are sort of paving the way, is they are becoming much more sophisticated and a little more abstract than they used to be. And they're putting out this big idea in a very illustratable way and letting kids kind of read it and then go, whoa, I never thought of that. So they are not condescending. They are not writing down to the audience. So They All Saw a Cat. If you have to go, it's even hard to describe. You just have to read it. It's amazing. But it's about how different animals and creatures saw a cat and what they saw through their vision, what it looked like to them. Did not look like a cat. And it's a whole book on perspective, and it's awesome. Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. Yes, Josh Funk. All those picture books by Josh Funk are amazing. So that sense of humor, that's a great lesson in, how to use a classic fairy tale or folk tale as a basis for a new story, and turn it on its head, which always works. It's always a great idea to do something like that if you could do it in a different way, because kids know. So Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast, that's an original story by Josh, but Josh also wrote a lot of fractured fairy tales. Sorry, my brain's starting to get tired. And he used like Little Red Riding Hood as the basis of Jack and the Beanstalk, and he created a really funny fractured fairy tale type book out of them. What makes that so funny is kids know the original, and so they see how the author has gone in a different direction, and it's hysterical. But yes, Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast, he's just a funny guy. Interrupting Chickens. Z is for Moose. Oh my God, these are such good books. Dr. Dog by Babette Cole. Oh my gosh. Yes, Babette. Babette is one. The Undefeated by Kwame Alexander. That is truly an amazing book. It is a picture book, but it's really spans a lot of ages, and it is gorgeous. It's very powerful. Out of Nowhere picture book. Gator, Gator, Gator. It's a picture book that invites the reader into the boat to find an alligator. Yeah, I love those picture books. That's, again, there's a monster at the end of this book. Pave the way for all the picture books we see now, where kids are invited to be part of the story. And that is so fun for a picture book reader. It really is. It involves them in the story. And that's something that we did not see before Monster at the end of this book. And then we didn't really see a whole lot of it for a while after that. But it's very popular right now. Middle grade verse novel, Emmy in the Key of Cook. Oh my gosh, you guys are pulling out the good stuff here. Little P by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. She is an amazing writer, was an amazing writer. The Three Ninja Pigs. Again, take The Skunk by Mac Barnett. Yeah. Take a fairy tale and turn it on its head. It's great. And that gives you that hook. The Three Ninja Pigs. I mean, the hook is in the title. The Skunk by Mac Barnett. Anything Mac Barnett writes, I love. He's got such a distinct style. And John Klassen. I want my hat back. That was an innovative book, and by John Klassen. And part of the reason it was is it took this big risk with the end, because the end was just, but not nice. And if you haven't read it, just go read I Want My Hat Back by John Klassen. He did a whole trilogy of hat stories. They're all amazing. But that first one is still my favorite. And it is just, it's another book where the reader really gets to put themselves into the story, not that the author's not asking them to participate, but they are judging the actions of the characters. It's their job to sort of decide if what's happening is fair and right, and if someone's lying, and then what happens to the liar. And it was brave because, yeah, the ending was just but not nice, as life sometimes is. Okay, we've gone a long time. I want to answer this last question here. Thank you all for your wonderful titles here. I'm going to see if we can figure out a way to list these with the replay. This is a great reading list. Okay. What's the best way to educate yourself about contracts when you don't have an agent? Does anybody offer webinars that will help demystify the contract process for authors who are repping themselves? Yeah, that would be a great webinar, wouldn't it? Maybe I should think about that. There are books written by publishing lawyers that walk you through that, and that is easy to get on. Just go on Amazon and write, contract negotiation for authors in the search bar. You want to make sure that you're getting advice from a lawyer and attorney who specializes in publishing, because publishing contracts obviously are different from other kinds of contracts. And so that is one way you would do it. You can also hire an attorney, and they will look over your contract and they will advise you on what you can and can't negotiate, or should and shouldn't negotiate, and how you would ask for things to be worded differently, etc. And they will charge you an hourly rate for that, and then you will go back to the editor and do those negotiations. I know several authors who have done that, and they felt that that was really worth the money. They did it once or twice, and then after that they felt they could do it on their own. So again, I would definitely, you want to look for a publishing attorney, and they're everywhere. And you could go on their websites and you could see their credentials, who they've worked with. Often they'll have articles, blogs, blog posts and stuff, so you can kind of get a sense of what their specialties are. So that is what I would do. Yeah, I think it's worth it, at least for the first one, to hire a professional to give you some advice. And it might cost you $300 or $400, but it will be worth it. Okay. Okay. I think I'm done. And I think you are too. So once again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to me babble tonight. I don't get to do that very often. So you indulged me. I appreciate that. And this has been a lot to me, and I've enjoyed seeing you all every week in my chat box. And I hope to see you all soon at our next event. So until then, good night. And I hope to hear from you with your celebrations. So, bye everybody.